So it's getting off the grid and being self-sufficient, not being owned by the government.
That's the goal.
Yeah,
That's the
it
goal.
is the goal.
Purchasing land, knowing how to do everything yourself, because we're not in a good circumstance right now in America. And
Because we don't know how to do
We don't know how to do any of that. We're all welfare dependents. Is something that I've recognized. We're all on welfare. If you think that your food comes from a grocery store, you're on welfare.
Yeah.
If you were terrified of what would happen during COVID and because of grocery stores, you're a dependent, and you think you're independent because you got some ritzy latte sipping job sitting behind a computer. You're nothing. You're
That's
a peasant. Right. And so what I appreciate about the South is that there aren't peasants. Everybody works with their hands. People know how to grow their own food, how to look outside. And I even have this app where what plant is this? Can this plant harm me? Do you know what agricultural zone you live in? That's real knowledge.
It is.
Reading BuzzFeed articles and
and that's living a life of value.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk to you about slavery because you're a black woman. You're an outspoken
and I know
black
all about
woman.
slavery.
I know you do, and so do I. And especially in America.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that, Lincoln freed the slaves and we had the Civil War and all that and starting there. And then, it was supposed to be 40 acres and a mule for every former slave. Well, that went nowhere. But then, shortly thereafter, they bring in that 1871 signing away, bring in that other thing where we're all slaves to England and, the Corporation of the United States of America, where we have to start paying taxes back to England and the Vatican banks in Switzerland, which in effect nullified 1776 and made us all subjects again of a corporation that serves Great Britain. They took away our whole country and made every working class person pretty much a slave.
Yeah.
Our birth certificate is owned, and that's their collateral.
Well, I talked about this in my book, and it's just a fact is that slavery never went away in this country. It just mutated. There are forms of slavery that people will no longer tolerate, and then the government smartens up and says, okay, how can we convince people that they're free and still have them be enslaved, which is really the conversation that we're having about the grocery store. The whole concept of, whoa, it's freedom, it's progress, and actually it's the most regressive thing ever. You don't know how to take care of yourself. You are literally relying on the government. I mean, you saw this in COVID. People are begging, the government, can I go outside? Can I do these things? You're a slave. You're absolutely a slave.
Absolutely.
And so there are tons of different ways that they've mutated slavery, and especially amongst Black Americans. It's fascinating. It's almost exactly what they did on the plantation.
Yeah.
It's just you can't physically, you're not seeing it with your own eyes. But
and you're not allowed to name it.
Yeah, well, I name it the whole time. It's modern slavery. I mean, it's your families are broken down, just like on during the times of slavery. You were not allowed.
The men were sent away.
Yep,
and they're now they just are incarcerated.
Yeah,
instead of working on
it's
another.
not even the incarceration. It's just the father absence incentives from the welfare system. Quite literally, we will give a baby mama more money for not marrying a man. And so the women don't marry men. And you had actual government agents coming down to inspect the homes of Black women to make sure that the Black men weren't there.
That was that whole Moynihan thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, to see the single motherhood rate in Black America go from 23%, which is what it was before they started all of this, the welfare industry and the Great Society Act, which is what spearheaded all of this, to now over 78%.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing that happened in terms of slavery. That was a policy. Also, Black Americans can't read. You tell people that you're facing a crisis in which literally the majority of Black kids cannot read. They can't pass literacy exams, and they ignore that. Do you understand this? It was a slave code that Black Americans couldn't learn how to read. And now they've done it systematically while telling you that it's more important that your kid feel emotional about Black Lives Matter than be able to read a book, right? And this is what they're producing. They're emotional. They have no logic. They have no ration, and they can't read. When you look at inner cities like Baltimore and you look across 5 schools and they can't find a single child that's proficient in reading and writing.
That's not an accident.
That's not an accident.
It's a pipeline from those public schools to prison. And you know what they do in prison? They work for corporations for 16 cents an hour. That is part of slavery.
Right.
To remove the males and make them work on another plantation.
Well, inevitably, when the direct correlation is when you remove fathers from the home and you have father absence, those kids inevitably turn to the streets because...
And then they go to prison.
Yeah, because they're looking for paternity. It's not like that thing inside of you that wants a dad to tell you, don't do this, don't do that. You're still going to pursue it. And so unfortunately for these kids, they pursue it in music. They pursue it in hip hop. They start... listening to rappers. The rappers are talking about gangbanging, and they go and they emulate that behavior because they don't have a dad that's saying, turn that off, you don't listen to this stuff. Music that would have never been allowed in my household. Growing up with my grandfather, there's no way I could have blared the rap music, is now what they're hearing in their airwaves. They can't read, they can't write.
Don't you think there's a war on well, I think it's all just I see it all as a class war, which slavery is.
Yeah, it's the idea is to keep people warring with each other so people don't see what's so obvious and what's in front of them, that they don't see that this is just a modern updated plantation with all of the exact same rules.
It is.
And so it keeps their focus. They look around and they finish school or graduate high school and they want to know why they don't have anything, why they can't read, why they can't make any money, why they are just slaves in the system. And then they go, and then the government says, it's because of white people. Or it's because of rich people, or, it's because of tall people, whatever it is, whatever ism they're working on. It's because of men, it's because of the patriarchy. And because these people are not rational and they don't have high intellect, they buy into it. And these are the people that you see rioting on the streets who are thinking, well, I'm going to take what's mine and grab a flat screen TV from Target because a random black person got shot. And
they're being rewarded, which I feel is they're just being set up.
Oh, they're just being pat on the head.
But they will be eventually arrested.
Yeah, of course.
Or shot in the streets like dogs.
Right.
Because that's what they're moving us all towards that.
Right.
Towards chaos in the street where, in the majority, I think that the target is black youth. I do. And working class youth. And it just makes me sick. And also they totally disguise with their CRT. They disguise the working class poor that are white.
Yeah.
And that's the devastation that's happening right now. I mean, it is the whole working class and the bottom of the middle class. And they did it on purpose because they go where the money is and they just take the money. And that's what causes the collapse of everything. When they take the money out of a community or out of a whole class, of course it's going to collapse and people are going to turn on each other.
Right.
And they do it on purpose and they pocket the shit.
Yeah.
They're pocketing every dime of that Ukraine shit.
Of course. There's no accountability, which makes entirely no sense. We should be able to log on to an account and see how the government spends our money.
Hello, it's our
There's
money.
no reason that we shouldn't be able to do that. If I can log in to my bank accounts and I can see every dollar I spend, the government can log into my bank accounts and see every dollar that I spend.
And take it if they want it.
And the IRS can, if I'm $50 off in paying them, say this is the forensic accounting we've done to show that. And then suddenly billions of dollars, they disappears when it's our tax dollars.
And they're giving guns to the new IRS if you're paying over $600 on Venmo.
Yeah.
They're sending $300 trillion to their own self.
Yeah,
and nobody's supposed to ask her. You'll go to prison if you ask where it went.
Yeah, I mean, I ask all the time. It's obvious. You're going to tell me we can't stop being in wars. We can't stop. We're in Iraq. We're in Afghanistan. We jump right into Ukraine, and you're constantly trying to tell us that we need to give a shit. I don't give a shit. I don't know how many times I can say this. I don't give a shit about what's going on in Ukraine. Okay. That is not my immediate concern.
But it should be, and I'll tell you why, because that's where all your tax money is going.
I care about what's going on in
your
DC.
Your roads, your hospitals,
and that pisses me off. And they keep trying to, and this kind of gets into the rich men north of Richmond and the success of that song is, you stop trying to tell us that we need to give a shit about what's happening in Ukraine when the overwhelming majority, if I had to put it at a number, I'd probably say 95% of American citizens can't even point to Ukraine on a map. Stop trying to make Ukraine happen, okay?
Well, we have to defend their borders over there in Ukraine.
Making appearances
person.
Grammys, and you see Zelensky on a press tour and his wife shopping in Paris. I mean, this is like let them eat cake,
It is let them eat cake. It is
let them eat cake, and it's so despicable and so disgusting and so spineless, left and right. Any person that gets up on a platform and tells you that it's our job to care about them, F them. Seriously, any person that can look you in the face as you're trying to feed your kids and tell you that you're heartless because you don't care about what's happening to whoever in Ukraine, F them. F them. Seriously.
Yeah.
I spit on that. I spit on that. How dare you?